Hi, this lecture will be on meat processing. There are three basic reasons why we eat meat. It provides satiety unequaled by other food items, can be prepared in several ways, and it provides nutrients almost in the exact proportion and amount needed by the human body. Selection of good quality meat varies among different sectors of the meat industry. Characteristics that affect quality are appearance, palatability, composition, processing, and safety traits. Meat traits that are good for processing include high water holding capacity, high emulsion capacity, has a good amount of soluble protein, and has formed stable emulsion. Meat processing is defined as any mechanical, chemical, or enzymatic treatment of meat which alters the form from which it originally occurs. The properties of fresh meat can be modified by use of one or more procedures, such as grinding or chopping, addition of seasoning or spices, alteration of color, or heat treatment. The advantage of meat processing is the integration of certain animal tissues like muscle trimmings, bone scrap, skin parts, or certain internal organs in the food chain as valuable protein-rich ingredients. The basic meat product processing technologies, cutting and mixing, are accomplished by various additional treatments like curing, seasoning, smoking, filling into rigid containers, vacuum packaging, and canning. This treatment depends upon the type and quality of the final meat product. The main objective of processing is to prevent it by inhibiting microbial decomposition. Processing technologies for meat products will not deliver satisfactory results if there is no adequate meat hygiene in place. All the slaughtering equipment used during processing should be made of stainless steel or plastic and should be rust resistant and easily cleaned and sterilized. Above are primal cuts of beef. Primal cuts are still large, but often requested by restaurants and grocery stores for easier processing. Primal cuts are then separated out into retail cuts, which vary in tenderness. Less tender cuts need to be braised or stewed. Medium tender cuts should be cooked by moist heat, and tender cuts can be roasted, broiled, or fried. This is just a chart of beef retail cuts you typically find in stores and restaurants that you can purchase. I also have attached a supplemental handout of the cuts which explains them a little more and their best cooking methods. The curing of meat brings about the modification of meat that affects preservation, flavor, color, and tenderness due to added curing agents. The prime purpose of curing is to produce the unique flavored meat products, and a special purpose is to preserve the red color of meat. The ingredients used for curing are common salt, sodium nitrate or nitrite, sugar, and spices. Salt retards microbial growth and gives flavor to the meat. Nitrite fixes the red color of myoglobin, also a beneficial effect on the flavor of cured meats and an inhibitory effect on Clostridium botulinum. Salt adds to the taste of the final product. The content of salt in sausages, hams, corned beef, and similar products is normally 1.5% to 3%. Sugar helps stabilize color, counteracts saltiness, and also adds flavor. Spices are added mainly for flavor. During curing by salts, the high osmotic pressure of the external fluid initially draws water and soluble proteins out of the meat. Later, salt diffuses into the meat and binds to the proteins, causing some expelled protein to diffuse back in. This causes a swelling of the meat. The salt-protein complex that forms binds water well. Curing also has some detrimental effects during storage. The pink color of nitrite cured meat changes to brown in the presence of oxygen. Thus, cured meat should be preferentially packed in containers from which oxygen has been excluded. The salts of cured meat enhance oxidation of lipid components and thus reduce shelf life. A cured meat may be dried and smoked. Smoking was originally used as a method of preservation, but today smoking is used mostly for its flavor contribution and coagulation of proteins. Ham is frequently processed by smoking. Slow smoking is preferable since the extended period enables more drying to occur on the surface. Drying is responsible for much of the preservative action of smoking. The smoke contains compounds having antiseptic properties which destroy the microorganisms present in meat. Smoking also prevents rancidity in meat. The last method of meat processing is canning. Canning is done by heating canned meat under pressure to reach temperatures above 110 degrees Celsius and immediately cooled to avoid overcooking. It is important to choose high-quality, chilled meat. If frozen, thaw the meat completely in the refrigerator, under cold running water, or in the microwave. Remove the excess fat from the meat product. Soak strong flavored wild meats for an hour in brine water containing 1 tablespoon of salt per quart of water. Rinse the meat product and remove the large bones, then cut into 1-inch wide strips, cubes, or chunks. There are 2 different methods of canning. The first method is hot pack canning. This is where you pre-cook the meat until rare by roasting, stewing, or browning in a small amount of fat. You then add a half a teaspoon of salt per pint or 1 teaspoon of salt per quart to the jar if desired. You then pack hot meat loosely into the hot jars, leaving 1-inch head space. Fill jars with boiling broth, meat drippings, water, or tomato juice to 1 inch from the top of the jar. Remove bubbles, wipe the jar rims, adjust lids, and process in a pressure canner. There is also raw pack canning. This is where you add 1 teaspoon per pint or 2 teaspoons of salt per quart to the jar. You then fill the jar with raw meat pieces, leaving 1-inch headspace. Do not add liquid. Wipe the jar rims, adjust lids, and process in the pressure canner as well. Next, we have materials commonly used in meat processing. Salt is the primary ingredient used in meat curing and the main flavoring agent used in meat processing. Salt contributes to basic characteristic of taste of the final product and plays a role in the binding of meat products. There are 3 kinds of salts: rock salt, fine salt, and refined salt. Refined salt has the least amount of impurities that may cause oxidative rancidity in meat products. The recommended amount is 2.5% to 3% of the total volume. The secondary ingredient in meat curing is sugar. Sugar counteracts the astringent quality of salt and enhances the flavor of the meat product. Sugar also aids in lowering the pH of cured meats. It also can reduce the shelf life of cured meats by providing food for spoilage bacteria, yeast, and molds. Next is nitrates and nitrites, which act as a preservative in processed meats. They are effective inhibitors of the growth of Clostridium botulinum, particularly in canned foods. They are also responsible for the desired cured color of the meat and act as powerful antioxidants that prevent rancidity. However, nitrates and nitrites are hazardous to our health as they are involved in the formation of carcinogenic substances in meat. Use of them should not and must not exceed 156 pounds per million residual nitrite. The use of phosphate in processed meat increases the water holding capacity of the meat and helps solubilize the muscle protein and lower acidity. Use of phosphates results in increase in product yield, drier and firmer product surfaces, more stable emulsion at higher temperatures, improved color and flavor stability, and improved binding of quality meat. Coloring agents in processed meat also make meat products more attractive. Examples of coloring agents include red beet concentrate for a purple-red color and paprika for a deep red-brown shade. I have also attached another supplemental handout on natural coloring methods for food. You can take a peek at that as well. Spices improve zest and produce variety to the meat products. However, they lack any nutritional value and are mostly of plant origin. Lastly, MSG, or monosodium glutamate, is used in meat processing. It has no flavor of its own, but does enhance the natural flavor of the product. The recommended amount must not exceed a half a teaspoon per kilogram of meat. Too much MSG may cause dizziness, nausea, and headache. Thank you.